I had a full beard before they like got cool, I guess. I'll never forget.
You were born with a beard.
Man, pretty much. Yeah, dude.
They went to cut the umbilical cord and cut a dreadlock instead.
That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for another episode of the Tattoo Guardians podcast show. I'm one of your three hosts, Mr. Matt Clemmer, here with my brother Hip. And you know what it is, our good brother Joshua Carlton joining us from Oregon. And tonight's an exciting night, and this is history in the making because it is our first ever guest on the Tattoo Party, on the Tattoo Guardians. I said party. Yeah, it is a party. Yeah. Folks, we got a true collector here, a good brother to us, just a man after my own heart, a man that I truly can not only call a client, a friend, but a brother that I love with my whole heart. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome our special guest, Mr. Charles Venancio.
Hell yeah.
Good to meet everybody.
Hey,
It's great
Charles.
to see you, man.
If they see my name, it is not Stephanie. I'm using my wife's PC because she's set up for all the Zoom stuff, and I'm not, so. But nice to be here. I definitely respect all you guys here and love you like brothers as well. So miss everybody
awesome,
so much. This pandemic has really put a damper on collectors like myself connecting with us, my family of artists that I don't get to see any longer.
Yes.
Yeah. You think about, all of us, these, traveling tattooers, it's a lot like musicians. It's like their whole life becomes tour, and you take that away from us, and it leaves us pretty empty. You know what I mean? So that's interesting to hear from a collector's side as well. Like, of course, you're in the same boat. So, yeah, at least we can get together like this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny you say that because, through social media, I've met so many people, just whether it be getting tattooed and walking through a show or being online. I used to meet the same people being online to show, to show me whether it was a back piece, a leg piece, a sleeve at an award show to try to, help my brother tattoo artists out by winning awards, that I don't even see these people anymore. And I've met such great friendships, not just artists, but just collectors at these shows, and when I follow them on social media and Instagram and read their posts, they're all saying the same thing, how they miss their peeps and they miss these shows and missing getting out there. It's really taken a kind of a chunk out of our life, what we love to do.
Absolutely. Wow.
Charles, tell our listeners, where are you joining us from? Where are you sitting right now?
I am sitting. I live in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, Dennis to be specific. So Cape Cod is the little peninsula that sticks out at the end of the east coast here of Massachusetts. So it is, you go over a bridge, and it is pretty much more known as a little vacation area. It's very quiet here in the winters, and then in the summer, it gets really crowded, with people who come out here and vacation pretty much from the late spring until the fall, which is very beautiful here as well. So.
That's awesome, man. So
Nice.
Good to have you here. So good. Just a little backstory on, if you don't mind me sharing, and Charles, help me on how you and I even met, right?
Oh, I know exactly, but you can go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'll lead you in because I remember seeing Charles at shows and just already revering him, like looking up to him, because it was like evident that dude's the real deal. He's a fucking true collector. And I'd see him at multiple shows, and he was the guy that was not only at shows collecting pieces, going to other shows collecting pieces, taking home hardware, winning awards, and I was intimidated. This was at a time in my career where I was a scared little boy to even be at the show. And then him and I crossed paths and, had, I think, one conversation that turned into more, and then led to I ended up getting selected by Charles to actually get to tattooing. You know how it is when you're tattooing next to all kinds of other badasses, how intimidating that can be. I was honored, scared, put on my big boy pants, gave it my all. And then there's more to the story, because now to this day we're brothers. He's flown now to Dayton for me to work on him. That's a big deal when you've tattooed a brother and somewhere else in the world, you build a relationship. Now they're buying plane tickets to come to your home. What a fucking honor, right?
Man.
So Charles, I'm just thankful again that I know you. But I'll let you, since you were so like, I remember exactly. Tell us.
I'll embellish it just a little bit. You had that right. I mean, I don't know what you were intimidated about, because what attracted to me was, well, I'll tell a story. It's real quick. But I had gone to this one particular show. We didn't have a lot of shows in Massachusetts, but there was a show that was a really great community of artists and unfortunately things have happened, so it's not the same type of show. But long story short, I remember I was online to show a tattoo from an artist who had asked me to come. And believe me, I didn't do all these awards and win awards because I really cared about it. I did it for my artists. I've helped so many artists with their businesses where they have cases now of awards. I mean, I built this space here. I think I threw out 10 years worth of trophies, and I kept a few that meant something, because I did them for my artists, not me. But I was online, and I remember looking at somebody's arm, because black and gray was always a thing that I looked for, artists who really could kill black and gray. And this guy had a tattoo on his arm. It wasn't a big piece, but I looked at it and I said, "Who did that tattoo?" And he said, "Well, Matt Clemmer did." And I remembered Matt and I would have conversations, because as I do my walk around the thing of any show, and I'd stop, and Matt was always very pleasant and great to talk to. And I'm kind of attracted to people that don't look like normal people as well too. So that, so we were talking, and I remember I was so impressed, and I had met Matt, and I said, "Hey," and I had some idea for a tattoo, and it was type related. It wasn't what I normally do, but it was a tattoo that had some meaning.
It was a lettering piece, was it not?
It was a lettering pice, and it's not normally what I have on my body, but it was something that meant something. And there I was in front of Matt, and I said, "Hey, would you mind doing this on me?" And I think most artists would have done it just for the buck and done it. But Matt said to me, "It's not my thing. If you really want to get that tattoo, you should go to so-and-so or so-and-so." And I'll never forget that. I'm like, wow. And I wasn't upset that he didn't want to. I thought it was really a big thing that he recognized and was honest and transparent about something that wasn't necessarily his sweet spot, maybe. And he said, "If you want that kind of tattoo, Sparky's the guy to do it," And I never forgot that. And then because of that moment, I then, got on the waiting list and bothered Matt and stayed in touch to set up a session to do a real major piece. And and the first tattoo we did together really was a piece that today gets most of the attention on me. When people go, "Oh, I like that," I go, "Yeah, you like that? Take a look at this." And it just goes, wow.
Nice.
And I think the piece you did, my Godfather, my Marlon Brando piece, if I'm not mistaken, we did win. We lost Tattoo of the Day. There's something Joshua did, I believe, didn't we?
Probably. I don't fucking know, but I know we won Best of Show.
Well, but we didn't win. Who did the Mona Lisa tattoo that day?
Oh, well, that was Kyle.
Oh, Kyle. It was
Kyle, yeah.
But I wasn't tattooing you on that day. I was tattooing Shownuff of Harlem. I
remember that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so I don't know. What are we talking, a decade ago?
I don't remember. But anyway, but that is the story, and it it meant a lot that you were, and I use that when I tell people, because a lot of people see me, and especially if I'm at a show and I've got a cut off shirt on and shorts, and I'm tattooed from the neck down. There's only one thing not tattooed on me. And people go, "I want to look like you, I want to look like you." And one of the things I always tell people is, make sure you pick an artist who is going to do what you want to do. Not every tattoo artist can do everything. And I tell the story of you, Matt. If you want a piece of type or lettering done, go to somebody that does that. You want black and gray, I don't care if the guy's the best color artist on the planet. If he doesn't kill black and gray, a lot of people who do color don't see in black and gray, and vice versa.
Exactly.
So, it is something that I tell people. I say, look at their work, and that's also important in terms of giving the artist that. I'm a creative person myself, and in the beginning I used to do all these sketches and I learned, when you work with good artists, give them some idea of what you want and let it go, and let them invest themselves into it, and let them you'll be amazed at that type of collaboration, how you get a really good piece.
I think all of our listeners right now are thinking, this is the fucking dream client. I wish everyone thought like Charles.
Right, right. Yeah, because as an artist myself, I've definitely learned that over the years that, it's like I always tell my clients that are a little bit difficult. I'm like, "Hey, do you like my work?" And they're like, "Yeah, I love it." I'm like, "Let me do it."
Right.
And,
I always tell people, trust is the biggest thing you need to have with your artist, and you need to give some of that up. And you can put some boundaries, like,
yeah, of course.
when I was doing my back piece, and my back is actually the only color I have. I have a traditional or neo-traditional Japanese dragon. I felt every collector needed a Japanese dragon for some reason. But anyway, so I had this artist, and I started realizing that there's a lot of ways to translate a dragon, right? They have different heads. They have some look like dogs, some look like dragons. And so what I did is, instead of telling, I basically said, I don't like these dragons. I like these dragons. And then I like these dragons for the composition. And I handed the project over, and that was enough sort of a box to put the artist in, to then give me something that just blew me away and ended up being the best back piece at a couple of award shows for 9 or 10 years in a row. You know,
That's
fantastic.
Right. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So powerful. So powerful. And to our listeners, I mean, because when you came to me from that lettering piece, and I knew who you were, and I was like honored that you were asking me to tattoo you. And then when it was a lettering piece, internally I was like, fuck, that's the one thing I suck at, right? And that's why I wanted to get you in good hands. He went over and got tattooed, and it was sick lettering piece by Sparky, who was like, you know, badass black and gray lettering from the West Coast, flew in. Anyways, and then Charles, you came right back to me to show me, and we celebrated together.
Yeah, and I think that's when 1 year later, I said, hey, can you let's do something together a year later.
And all the years, because we ran into each other at the Paradise show that was put on by Godway, and man, who's my good brother, who was Godway's partner?
Gabe.
Thank you.
Ripley.
Yes, Gabe from Tattoo Now. Yep, it was. Thank you, Josh. And I can't believe I even was. You know, we all can forget good friends' names for whatever. So we see each other, and I saw Charles win awards, even at the shows. Best back piece almost every year. Takes overall male at the Boston Tattoo Convention. You know, just really, really fucking cool. But something that was extra special to me, Charles, other than having the honor of tattooing you, knowing that out of all these dudes, you're definitely a true collector, but that when we did that Marlon Brando piece on you, we went up there, we won best of show. And I remember, because brother, you were on stage with your trophy, had some tears of joy, calling your wife like, baby, we fucking won, because out of all the awards, he had never taken best of show, and he was on stage crying, you know.
Yeah, it was great, and I was happy for you too, you know.
Fuck yeah. I think
as years went by, I stopped doing a lot of the individual, like when I was fully covered. Yeah. I stopped doing the individual awards because I figured, you know, there's a lot of other artists, and it's time for other people to get some hardware and share it. I didn't need it, and my artists certainly didn't need it either. Yeah. So the only one I continued to do was overall male at Boston. The other shows didn't have it, because to me that was the top award you could get that celebrated all of your collection of all the people that have touched and made a mark on your skin. So to me, that was the best award you could get, best in overall, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
That's gonna be exciting.
And Josh Hip and all our listeners, just so you know this man's heart, and you can hear it in his language, how much he's considering doing it for the artist. Even if now I'm going to bow out of some of the award ceremonies for other artists to win some, you know what I'm saying? But even in the beginning, when you said you was going and entering, you were doing it more for your artist. And folks, he's right, because that next year, so he went to this was the second annual Boston Tattoo Convention. Charles won again, best overall male, which, let's stop right there. That's not an easy thing to win.
True.
The next year he shows up with the award to give it to me.
Oh, that's
awesome. I'm holding it right here. This is best overall male from the Boston Tattoo Convention, because my brother Charles went and won it. His whole torso. Yes, I've done like a couple pieces on his leg, but he honored me since I'm a contributor to the whole.
Definitely.
And he gave me the award, and it's in aisle 9 to this day. We just brought it here because I wanted to honor you back and say thank you.
That makes me feel good. Yeah, I tried to, artists that contributed greatly to, I mean, every single artist. And I mean, you know, Hips did a couple of small pieces on me, but every single piece to me makes me who I am, and it tells a story. And tattooing to me is a moment in time that you can put a story to that tattoo while you got it where you were. And I remember them all. But what I tried to do with those awards was I tried to, if I had an artist that contributed that I felt greatly to me when I won an overall male, because a lot of time, like at Boston, for instance, you didn't have to be there to get that. The artist didn't need to be there. So in your case, if you weren't there, there were 4 or 5 artists who I would give that trophy to, and people like Tuyen and a few other people who've done a lot of work on me. And so it was my honor to be able to give that to you. Jesus. And that's why, so
that's awesome.
Yeah. My God, I'm going to start crying. So you guys fucking talk.
I got a question for you. I was always curious, just from the other side of things, like, was there a time, so like, okay, so you wanted some lettering, so I'm guessing maybe you weren't super tattooed then when you wanted some lettering. I could be wrong on that. But was there a time that you were like, I'm going to do this. I'm all in. You know what I mean? Maybe you didn't know the term collector, or it doesn't really even matter, but was there a time when you made that decision, maybe you spoke to your wife, you know what I mean, and said, hey, guess what? This doesn't sound crazy. Neck down, getting covered. I actually could tell you a story about that. It's interesting. And it's twofold. As far as the lettering goes, it's kind of related. I found out later on in life, much later on in my 40s, early 40s, that I was adopted. Okay, it was kept a secret to me.
Wow.
And I was raised in a family that had a lot of alcohol abuse and physical abuse. I'll leave it at that. So it wasn't always I thought I had a great childhood, but it was filled with abuse, right? So I started getting tattooed. And at that point, I didn't really think of myself as a collector, okay? I was just getting tattooed. And I first started getting tattooed because I think I always wanted to feel different. I wanted to stand apart, right? I wanted to look different. I liked biker gang. I liked all that stuff. But no, I'm a pussy. I'm not a gang member. But I liked the people that stood apart in society and were somebody unique, not just it was like a sheep. So I started getting tattooed. Then tattooing got mainstream, right? I'm like, what? Wait a minute. I never did what I did to be mainstream, right? Now, I'm happy from a standpoint tattooing got mainstream because it was more accepted. And then people like yourselves are able to make, you're not doing gang tattoos, right? You're able to make, it is an art community. Tattooing today is first and foremost an art. So at that point, the switch flipped for me, and I'm like, all right, well, I didn't do this to be mainstream, so now I got to go the other way. If I'm going to stand out, especially at shows and in this community, then I got to cover myself. So that was one thing. The other thing, and now I'm going to bring it back to the story about the lettering tattoo and being adopted. I had a small space on my wrist that I added that tattoo, so it wasn't that. But when I had found out I was adopted, I had this whole other family, the family that raised me, and then my blood family. And people are like, you can't make this up. And so I wrote down the word families one time. It was the plural, F-A-M-I-L-I-E-S, right? Families. And I looked at the back end of that word and I said, you can't write families without the word lies at the end of it. So I had this idea. So I didn't just do lettering. I had this idea it was family, and then the L-I-E-S was handled in a different way. So lies was pulled out of the word families. Okay. So, and at the same time, I started going to shows and seeing people like Matt and other, and I realized that you do collect from different artists. And as I had certain pockets of skin left, and this is where it's getting, somebody who was a friend of mine, but kind of like my own therapist of all the stuff I was going through about finding my adoption, said, why is this rush to cover your body? And he said, I think you don't realize this, but I think you're trying to cover up your past. So there was this other whole thing, aside from the thought in my head that I wanted to now not look mainstream, and I figured I wanted to be more extreme and cover my body. I also had this sense right after I found that I was adopted to really go out and on a real quick pace too, to cover every piece of blank skin I had left. And it was my buddy who said to me, I really think this is a deeper issue. I think you're trying to cover up your past. Because I was excited to find my new family, my new father, I should say, my blood father. I was like, in a way, I was able to get away from the people I thought I was connected to, that wasn't really my blood. So I was looking to reinvent myself in a way. So it's kind of twofold there. So.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Thanks for sharing that with us.
And to clarify to all our listeners, you did get to meet your father. real father, correct?
Yes, yeah. No, I have a great relationship with my father.
Oh, that's wonderful.
He's not
Yes.
healthy now, but I cherish every moment I can have with him right now. So.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And he's
Awesome.
tattooed. I mean, Sean
Yeah.
Barber tattooed a portrait of my dad on the back of my leg, and I had
Nice.
another artist. So I have my whole lower right leg is kind of a theme about my dad, my dad was a welder, his trade, long before I met him. So I have sort of an angel's hand holding a cutting torch, cutting open an hourglass because we're trying to get lost time back. So
Sure. Wow, that's beautiful.
Jeez.
Yeah, I was always curious about that. You know what I mean? When I see these people that are just, I see them at all the shows that I go. I've literally been to hundreds of shows, and I always meet these collectors. And because you look like everybody else in our family, you look like a tattoo artist. You know what I mean? So, and then I'm just always interested in when you kind of made that decision and like how that was, and like was there a time frame? I'm also curious too. I've always been curious of like, how far have you traveled and are willing to travel? Like, let's say, you got this back piece, right? This Japanese dragon, had you had the opportunity to get it in Japan, would you have gone that far?
absolutely. And so the other thing, I mean, I've obviously traveled around the United States to get tattooed. I think Dayton's in the United States, right, Matt? I have gone out to Vegas to tattoo shows only, not to get tattooed on a strip, but when they used to have the world's biggest tattoo show out there, it was called. And I've gone there to meet artists coming in from Germany and outside of the United States. So I have been tattooed by artists who are outside of the United States, but out in Vegas. And then I did, the first time I went to Italy, I said to my wife, why don't we go to Venice as well before we go to Florence? And she loves to tell everybody, well, because I went to the Venezia tattoo convention to get tattooed, because I also found when I was adopted, see, I grew up thinking I was half Portuguese and half Italian. Well, my birth father's 100% Italian, so I had this urge to go back to Italy. So when I went out there, I said, oh, wouldn't it be cool to get tattooed by an Italian artist in Italy? And I looked, there were a lot of guys doing great black and gray. They just don't come to America, these European artists. So I remember I reached out to about 5 artists, and because it was late in the game to try to get tattooed, and they also didn't have, who did I reach out through social media? Who had an I didn't know who was going to get back to me. And a lot of them seemed so honored that somebody from America was going to come out, and how I was treated. And this one gentleman from Milan, he said, I'm available. And one of the notes I said to these artists, this goes back to, I said, listen, I'm coming to the Venezia Tattoo Convention. I showed them pictures of me to show that I was serious about collecting. I had these full length photos done of me by a photographer. And I said, I'd love to have a piece of you as part of my collection. And you can do whatever you want. If you want to tattoo something that you've always wanted to do on somebody, no one would let you, I'm coming to Italy and I'll let you do it.
Wow. You are a dream client.
Yeah, no shit.
Oh, now I did select artists that I knew, I kind of knew what I was getting into, right? But so a few of them said, sorry, I'm booked, would have loved to do it. And this one artist said, I'll do it, right? And I remember he showed me this conceptual black and gray piece with a scully figure turning it. It was just amazing, something I would have never thought about. But the best thing is when I went out to that show and I was laying there for like Matt knows about long sessions, but the 9 or 10 hours is not going to seem long to Matt. But as I was laying there getting tattooed, these other artists that I had reached out to wanted to come meet the collector from the United States.
That's so cool.
And shake my hand and say how blessed they were that I had chosen them, but they weren't able to tattoo me.
Wow.
That's fantastic. So
I've gone to Italy, and I actually I don't even know if I should be talking about this right now, but I may be going to Milan now to get tattooed again by the artist who I've stayed, who tattooed me 3 years ago, and we've stayed very, very close friends just through social media. So,
wow.
Italy's closed again right now, so they've shut shops down. But my wife and I are hoping to go the end of September, early October, and our first stop would be Milan, and I plan to get tattooed again in Milan by this other artist who I've become friends with.
It's amazing how tattoos can connect people all around the world like that. That's awesome.
And Matt, I don't want to give it away too much, but if I get tattooed now, it could be the top of the Sunday. It could be something that's getting tattooed.
All right. Well, the last time we talked, we was talking about maybe me doing your ass cheeks, unless somebody else already covered them.
I got those done.
Okay, all right.
I was running out of room. You know, it's funny. I was like, who would tattoo my ass? I'm thinking. Well, you know who ended up doing it? You know him. Steve did it. Tef did it. Because I said, you know what? I wanted it to be kind of funny. I said, I'm thinking of alien tentacles coming out of my butt crack, and I'm thinking, all right, who's good? Steve Teft, he can tattoo alien tentacles, and he finished it at Tommy's Tattoo Convention in Hartford, and I didn't realize, you know, because he had one ink master, so it was one of these things where they were using him to get people in that show. I didn't realize his booth was right through the turnstiles at this convention center, so everyone's coming in. They've got even bringing their children, and here I am laying face down. Maker's mark in my hand. I'm wearing a jock strap, and he's spreading my butt cheeks apart. And I'm like, if this is going to be right, you got to go in there. These are not on the outside. We did it over 2 days, and he would be just like, hey, want to try? You know, he'd hand a machine to people and say, or he'd tell people like, hey, this is the only piece of ass I'm getting tonight. You know, it was a fun day. But
right.
That's awesome. So
That's funny.
Good. So maybe you're gonna shave your head and go to the dome, huh?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It might be some Raven theme and just it flows, and it's just. But if I do it, I'm doing the whole thing. I'm not doing a piece of it. So I said, how long? He goes 2 long days. So we'll see. But
I do have to say I've got my head tattooed, and it's not too terrible.
I'm hoping that's it. Well, you know what my big fear was? Here I shave my mane of hair off. I go out there, he puts 4 lines on it. I can't do this.
Right.
I got a stick figure on my head and stuff. You know, but so we'll see. I mean, like I said, right now they're closed. But you know, I'm hoping that it's going to be open. And but it's so funny because my wife, who these guys met just now, I've known my wife since she was 15, and she has one little tiny tattoo on her butt that she did for one of our anniversaries ages ago. But she's like the most normal looking person you'd ever. I mean, I'm normal at a tattoo show, but not when I'm out here in Massachusetts. And she always forgets when we travel, especially when we go to Europe. She'll shake her head, and I'll go, what's the matter? And she goes, I always forget why people stare at us, you know? And we have a little thing now. She'll go, freak show, and that means people are staring at us and all. So I really don't think anybody's going to stare anymore if I do the dome, you know? And but my wife's got this weird thing, like she's going to let me go that extreme, but she doesn't want my neck done. She says she hates when there's a tattoo on a neck. So it's so funny. She thinks people's heads float when their necks are tattooed. But I'm like, you let me do the hands and but no neck. I said, okay, no neck. I won't do that. So
okay. Well, that explains it, because I was going to ask. Your neck looks clear, but now we know it's probably going to stay that way, huh?
Well, that's why they grow the beard, so it doesn't. Nobody would know.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Matt, I didn't have a beard when I first met you.
I know it. I did though, huh?
Yes, you did.
I had beards. I had a full beard before they got cool, I guess. I'll never forget.
You were born with a beard.
Man, pretty much. Yeah, dude. You guys should see my crotch. I got 2 beards.
They went to cut the umbilical cord and cut a dreadlock instead.
That's right.
Well, I think that's why I did with my beard too. It's like beards again. Everybody's growing a beard, right? And so I'm like, all right, well, maybe I'll just keep it short on the sides and grow this long beard that I braid up and all. But it seems like everybody's got beards now too, you know. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, tricks on all you, because I can't grow a beard.
You can't?
No, my shit grows in inbred as fuck.
Wow, man. Well, at least you got dope tattoos. Your face is tattooed. Your neck. You making up for it, boy.
Yeah, my wife will let me tattoo my neck.
But Hip, I remember when you tattooed me. I really truly did want to get tattooed by you, and at that point, I didn't really have anything to do but a couple of little fill-ins and a finger, I think you did for me. But I remember how humbled I felt when you said you were humbled. I'm like, what? Oh, yeah. I'm like, you're here I'm asking you, because I respect you, to tattoo me. But it's just amazing I just love the community. It's just, that's what it is. I mean, when I first started getting tattooed, it wasn't that way. It was like you went to the boardwalk on the Jersey Shore, and some guy who was, tattooing bikers put a tattoo on you, and chain on your arm or something like that. And so where it has come today to think tattooing is not an art form, and it's insane. And that's why, Matt, like some of the tattoos you've done on me, when people are saying, "Oh, I like like if I'm bartending, you see my sleeves," and my arms were some of the first things done. So I don't really think they're by far the best tattoos I have. So, I mean, my stomach, my back, my thighs, the legs you've done. So when people look at me and go, "Oh, I go, "Oh, you think that? Look at this." And I just love the expression when they're like, people can't believe what an artist can do, that you can make something look like a painting or a drawing, especially if you're into what I am, more the realistic black and gray. I mean, when I got my armpit done, a lot of people, doing the spider webs of flowers. Well, I didn't phone it in. I put a portrait in my armpit, and when I show that to people, it's like, whoa, so it's space I had left, and it's what I did, so.
Yeah, that's awesome.
A little fun story. I've done the Massachusetts convention twice, both times with Matt, and he introduced me to you and talked you up, and he always uses you as an example as like a true collector, like someone who's like is serious about getting tattooed and who tattoos them, all the way to the point to where like he always would tell this story of everybody standing around and a guy would come up and be like, "Hey man, what do you charge?" And I think you or another collector would step in.
It was a different collector, it wasn't him.
Oh, okay. Well, they would step in and be like, "Well, if you got to ask, you can't afford it." Just so like, a lot of times how I view people I've never met before, I just had you on a pedestal even before I met you. Came the first year, met you, we slapped hands, honored. I got to see some of your work in person, all beautiful. Then the next year, I was up all night pulling one of those all-nighters with Matt, and I think I was probably asleep 3 hours, and my wife rushes in, and she like wakes me from my slumber. And she tells me, "You're down there and you're looking for me." And I'm like, "Why in the fuck's he looking for me?" And then she's like,
I remember that.
He wants you to tattoo him. And I'm like, "Get the fuck out of here." So I like got up and like tried to shake off the sleep, and stumbled down there and luckily woke up and like couldn't really. That was a highlight of a tattoo convention, because when someone like you comes up and asks for a tattoo, it's, man, what a fucking honor, dude.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and I think it wasn't that you did a giant big piece on me. You did some filler pieces, but I just think I felt like I wanted to be connected. You were connected to Matt, and I wanted a connection to you. And I've done that a lot. I mean, a couple of my other, there's a core group of artists that have done, maybe a good part of my tattooing on me. And I found that because of the people like yourself who had this mutual respect, that at these other shops, I've done that with people as well, where one of the guys who maybe wasn't as popular, but I saw something to work, and like I thought it'd be perfect for a spot, that I had left. And so I've done that at other shops as well.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned the only thing I regret, I don't regret any tattoos, but the only thing I regret is that I really learned about what the level of tattooing a collector that you could I wish when I did my chest plates and when I did my arms, I just wish there were some artists I just wish I could have gotten tattooed, but I just don't have the space that would do it justice, And I would never, I also I wouldn't think of, and it's not that people shouldn't do it, collectors shouldn't do it. Like I wouldn't get rid of the tribal piece on my chest so I could get, another tattoo, because again, I think I said that earlier, that piece is a moment in time for me. It's a part of my life. I know where I was, who did it. And even though it's not the best tattoo and it's nothing I would be necessarily proud of, there's stories connected to it. And to erase it just to have, another tattoo done. I mean, there are reasons, obviously, and there's obvious reasons why people should remove tattoos if they don't have the same belief why they got the tattoo, or there's a million reasons. But just to erase somebody's work to get somebody else's work on top of it is just not something I ever thought about. So.
Yeah. That's wonderful that you say that, because I've always kind of carried that, like, you know, like exactly like you said, it's a snapshot in time, you know, and a tattoo doesn't have to be jaw-dropping, you know, if it means something in your life, if it can help tell your story, you know what I mean? You know, a tattoo is something that you wear for, you know, you wear that, you carry that around with you. So I like that.
I think another thing that people ask me too, that is a misconception that or misperception, I should say, that people think when they look at it, they go, do your tattoos have meaning? They must have meaning, right? And tattoos do not have to have a meaning.
Right. Thank you.
Especially when that little tiny piece of lettering that says families on it is probably my most meaningful tattoo, right? But my show-stopping, jaw-dropping Marlon, you know, scene from The Godfather is just because it's like my favorite movie.
Yeah,
it's not, you know, there's no meaning behind that, you know.
It's like it means it's cool.
It's an artist that I respected, and the sweet spot for Matt was, you know, portraits, and that's what I got, you know. But I would say a lot of my tattoos don't have meaning, to be honest. You know, what kind of meaning does a Japanese back piece have? It's just like Japanese dragons. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's awesome. And Charles, you've been touching on a lot, which is beautiful, because it's not just tattooers that are listening to this, but it's tons of the collectors, fans, the consumer. And so for all the listeners out there to hear from you, Charles, is such a great, poignant advice across the board.
It is.
Other things I tell people too, and it's hard in this community because someone like myself, who, you know, my hands and everything's tattooed, but you really got to think about, and I don't want to preach to people, but what you're going to do in life and all. I got tattooed late in life. I really started getting tattooed in my late 20s, and I'm 59 now. So it's been about 30 years and I'm still getting tattooed now, obviously here and there. But, you know, I did the things that, you know, I always tell it's funny, when I moved here to Massachusetts, most of my friends weren't tattooed. As a matter of fact, it was illegal to be tattooed in Massachusetts when I moved here in 1996. And when all the kids, when all their kids, you used to go across the border to Rhode Island. It's crazy. So anyway, when all the kids would turn 18, they go talk to Mr. Venancio if you want a tattoo. Go talk. And I would tell kids, get a back piece, get a full back piece before you put something on your hands or your arm, because you don't know what you're going to do, you know. And people when you look like us, people do judge you. And until you can have a job where you don't give a fuck, you need to care. It's just the way it is.
Right. Sure.
So you know, but you know, I did a lot of things, and it's funny, when I left the corporate world for the first time, you know, in 4 years ago, the first thing I did was I got my hands tattooed, because I really was gonna, at that point in my life, I was like, I am not gonna work anywhere where I care what people, you know, think how I look anymore, and I just want to be myself. You know what I mean? So. Well,
Charles, I appreciate you bringing that up too, because for all our listeners that may be envious of a guy like you, but disqualify themselves because they're in corporate America, that's why I think it's important for everyone to know, through your whole journey as a collector, you were always in corporate America, and you had long sleeves, you had the suit on or whatever was appropriate, to where most people had no idea that you've got a full bodysuit underneath at the board meeting, right?
Yeah. And it's funny, because before I left work, obviously my beard took a little while to grow, so I had the beard going, you know, and I got more kind of crap for my beard than I did my tattoos, because tattoos were a little more accepted. But the point I did make is, and it was my choice, right? You can say, I don't care what people think, and I'm going to do what I want, and I'm going to tattoo my neck, and that's fine. That's your choice. But then you've got to accept the responsibility of having those tattoos. Yeah. So when I worked for the company that recruited me up here in Massachusetts, in the beginning, we did have a culture where people wore jackets or suits or something like that, and so it was very easy. But then we started going more casual, and now I was wearing short sleeve shirts, so all of a sudden they realized, oh, Charles is tattooed, you know. And they accepted it, and they thought it was actually, because, as I said, tattooing was getting more mainstream, and now I was the guy with the tattoos, and they thought it was really cool. But I still could, if I had to go to another building or I had to go somewhere else, I could wear a long sleeve shirt or throw a jacket on and not feel out of place, you know, in that.
Well, and I love that you bring that up, because you're discerning and you know your audience. So you started out, people knew Charles when you guys were more formal. You'd already built rapport with them. So then when they went a little more lax, then when you went to short sleeves, it wasn't like, who the fuck is this guy? It's like, oh my God, our dude Charles has got sleeves. But now if you had to go to another building, you might put that jacket on. You know your audience, and they know you. That's powerful.
funny story. I had a boss come in, and it was during the war, and he wanted to invite over to everyone who was at his house, all his employees, for a pool party. And I said to my wife, do I wear a wetsuit and tell him I'm allergic to chlorine? It was kind of the coming out party, I had a tank top on and shorts on, but I've got a son who's 30 years old, and it's so funny because when your dad, he's gotten tattooed too, and he's done his own thing, but I have 3 children. None of them have really gone to the extreme I've done, but my son started like doing some things on his fingers and behind the ear here on the neck and all. And I, as a father, I said, listen, that's fine. You got a good job. And he's got a good job. And I said, just understand that you need to, you want to do it? Look at me. I'm not going to tell you can't do it. You're an adult, but just be prepared for, the stigma, what comes with being tattooed.
So
yeah.
When your wife's like saying freak show, like alert, people are staring at you, you've got a choice in that if you're going to react. And in the times when you feel like you're being judged, do you ever use that as an opportunity to go and bless them and remind them that age-old lesson that you can't quite judge a book by its cover? Or,
well, I'll tell you that she doesn't. Obviously, when you look like the 4 of us look right here, you really don't care what people think what you look like, okay? And as I said earlier in the program, I look the way I do, whether it's my beard, whether it's my tattoos, because I want to be noticed and I want to be different than mainstream America. So when I find people are staring, it's usually children or kids with a parent, and you can tell they're doing the old don't look, don't stare. It's not nice to stare at people. So I'll usually go up to them and I'll say, it's okay. In this instance, it's okay to stare. I said, I don't look this way because so I let them know it's okay, and then you want to see this, you want to see that. So, so I don't get upset at all about it. What I do get upset about is when people judge people that who are tattooed and don't realize. There's a quick story. My son, who I mentioned, is a physical therapist, and I was training in a gym, and I felt a pop in my thigh, and I thought I had pulled maybe had a muscle tear in a thigh. So he made a phone call to one of the centers, and he said, this guy is going to take you in and get over there. He'll examine you. And the way he talked to me, he was speaking really slow to me, like I wasn't going to understand what he was saying, and he had no idea that what I did in my life and what I really, because he was judging me by the way I looked. But I don't really remember the specifics of what he said to me, but he was almost, as I engaged him in conversation, I sounded intelligent. He actually. He said something to me and say, "Oh, I didn't realize you were that smart," or something. It was something ridiculous like that. Yeah. But it was people are very. They still judge, despite it being more mainstream. I think we're still looked at. There's still a judgment in society about people who are tattooed.
Absolutely. Right. I think we probably all experienced it. I know when I started going through all this medical stuff, I would notice that. I often felt like early on, before I knew I had cancer, and I was trying to get figured out what was going on, I could feel that they were like, "Are you just here to try to get some kind of prescriptions?" I could really feel that energy coming off of them, Yeah,
it's funny you said that, because I went on a cruise with some friends many years ago, and I'm not big on sun, and I take care of my tattoos. I'm not a beach person or sun person. So I remember one of our friends' wives wasn't feeling good, so I stayed on the ship with her and just hung out and stuff. I didn't want to go where they were going on some excursion on a catamaran or something, but she wasn't feeling good. She had hurt her shoulder and she had it in a sling, and she's like, walk me down to I want to see if I can get some painkillers. And then when we got there, my friend, she actually said, "Can you stay outside? They're not going to give me these if you come with me."
Damn. yeah, people are still judged for sure.
It's funny. Now I think if I do my head, I am really going to find out who my true friends are too, because I have some friends who have jokingly and kidded saying, "Well, your head, really? What about when we go out? Aren't you afraid people?" I go, first of all, if you don't think people are staring at us now when you go out with me, I really think if anybody's going to pull off a head tattoo, it's going to be me. I don't even think most people are going to know. But I've had friends say, really trying to talk me out of it, like saying, I don't think it's a good thing. It's this and that. And I'm like, well, we'll see. I had one friend, I hope that he would never hear this because I'm going to say this. I've never said this to him, but he actually, and he's a big guy. He's overweight. He's real big. So our relationship hasn't exactly been, hasn't been based on how we look. Okay. It's because we love each other as friends and brothers. And he said to me, on more than, if you ever do your head, I don't know if we can be friends and go out.
Wow.
We're going to find out, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll hang out with you, Charles.
Friends are. Right. Yeah. Yeah, we'll hang out.
You know, like I don't go on Facebook, but I'm not accepting new friend requests anymore in my life anyway, so it doesn't really matter, you know?
Right.
Well, and you're not bald, so you could actually, in 3 weeks, cover it by just your new hair growth if you want.
That's what I tell people. But and to me, the only thing that matters to me is my, in the end, is my wife and my, if my wife, who's the most normal looking woman, who doesn't care what I do, I don't care what my friends think. You know what I mean?
Right.
Right.
Well, a great example. I ate at a new restaurant yesterday, me and my wife, and she gets more offended at people looking at me than I don't even notice it. It's not on my radar. But we'll leave a place and she'll say something anyway. So it's a uppity restaurant, and it's our first time being there. And the majority of the people in there yesterday were older women, and drinking wine. Me and her, we don't drink, so we're just eating appetizers and doing our thing. And one of the ladies is leaving, and she's got her 90-some-year-old mother with her, and they take a good 15 minutes to get her in the car. And then the daughter, which is 70, close pushing 70, is trying to unfold her mother's walker to get it in the back seat. Doesn't understand that it folds, and out of everybody that's sitting there watching, I'm the one that gets up to help this little old lady, and I fold it and put it in the car. Well, the mom turns around in the passenger seat and sees who's helping her daughter, and just like mouth to the floor and just can't say anything. And I even tell her, like, have a good evening, ma'am, and she's just stuck, like, looking at me. And it's just, what a great opportunity to look the way we do and have the hearts that we have, because we get to be the bridge in people's lives to be like, you can look like a walking comic book or cartoon character and still have a heart of gold, and be able to show people, like Matt was saying at the beginning, like that age-old lesson that you can't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Some of the nicest and most helpful people I've met in my life have been the tattoo community.
Yes.
As we know with my story, I mean, everybody came together and raised money for me. It was not everybody did whatever they had to do to help me out, and it was just unbelievable. So yeah, you know what I mean? You definitely can't just judge. One
of the coolest things, they were going to do another book and they were going to include me, but they didn't do it. But one of the coolest things I ever saw was it took photographs of people in corporate America, and the name of the book was Inc., but it wasn't INK, it was INC, as in incorporated, okay? And they had spreads of people, and on one side, in the same pose, whether it was hands on hips, was the guy who was in the suit because he was an attorney or a lawyer, and then it was him with his full Japanese bodysuit, and the other one. It was a very cool juxtaposition of both worlds,
right.
And I think some of us, now you guys, I always envy tattoo artists because you get to live in the world, and that's the world, and you look the part, but for people like myself who lived in corporate America and had this other world, I mean I did what I did for my family, and I was in advertising, so I had a passion. I was a creative guy, but when I put that suit on or the jacket on and I covered, it's not really who I was.
Right.
So you did live dual lives in a way, so which is hard. It was hard.
Yeah.
I was always curious, like, is there a white whale for you? Like it's in the words of Moby Dick, like, do you have somebody, was there an artist out there that you maybe you reached out to, or you just weren't able to get, and maybe now you're out of room? You know what I mean? Do you have somebody that you were just like, man, I wish I could have gotten tattooed by so-and-so, but now I'm out of space?
Yeah, I mean, there are a bunch of artists like that were sort of in like the Jose Perez Jr. category of black and gray guys, and
Absolutely.
and there were some international ones too. I mean, Torres. I'm trying to remember the other guy.
Carlos Torres.
Carlos Torres. I would say Carlos Torres, Jose Perez. There's some guys like that. When I talked about like me having, a tribal check, that to me that's a big piece of real estate. That and yes, so I think as I became a collector later on, when there wasn't that big space to do those sort of epic size pieces, there is a handful of artists that I really wish I could have if I had known, about so-called collecting then. The funny thing that people understand is, when I was younger, I had a couple of tattoo artists, and I had my guy, right? My artist, right? And everybody loves their artist. And everybody says my artist is the... Has anybody ever said my tattoo artist sucks? No, everybody's got the best artist, right? But maybe your artist does suck. I don't know, So there is a world out there if people do look beyond because in the beginning I had a loyalty to a couple of artists, and I kept getting tattooed by them. We had great relationships we built. And the first time I started going elsewhere to get, I actually felt bad because I was getting tattooed by somebody else, until you realize, like guys like you in your room, you understand that as a collector, that is what we're supposed to do. But so I wish I understood that. But also tattooing, if you think about, me getting tattooed for the past 30 years, tattooing really has come a long way into being an art form. And like I said, being more mainstream, being exposed to such great artists now is a lot easier because of social media than it was when I was first getting tattooed. So the only way you learned about getting tattooed, especially me growing up on the Jersey Shore, is walking down the boardwalk and looking in a tattoo shop and seeing the flash on the wall. We didn't have options of seeing these, what is possible out there, what it is today. So I really tell people today, because I get a lot of people that when I'm at a show, especially young kids who maybe have a piece on their shoulder, they got a couple pieces. I want to look like you when I'm your age. And I said, okay, well, if you want to look like me at my age, here's where you start. You do your stomach now. You do your armpits now. Don't do your arms. And the whole thing goes to about growing up and finding out where your place is in life as well. But I always you got to get some of these tough spots out of the way before you get 50s and try tattooing your stomach. That is not pleasant, Yeah,
it just hurts worse as you get older. It keeps hurting worse.
And when I did my hands, it was funny. It was the first time I ever was told, because I thought I was in pretty good shape. The artist had said, "Oh, you've got old skin," and I was like, I had never been told that before, So the hands, I guess they just get a little
Sure. Just all the weather, just life,
Yeah, and I also, the hands were the hardest things to heal as well. And as I've gone to other artists, say, want to do a finger? Just to do, I go to some of my artists just to get tattooed again and have them I always have to go a second time with the finger. I heal really great. I mean, Matt's tattooed my kneecap and pounded black in, and it's still there today. I take care of him as well with my tattoos, but the fingers and my hands healed perfectly though, but some about fingers, it's just they don't heal.
How that finger I got to tattoo, how that heal?
That actually was probably the one that I'm being to be honest with you, that's the only finger. That was maybe my first finger tattoo, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 other ones done. Every one of the other ones got touched up, not yours.
Man. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. No, it never. There might have been a little tiny part on the side of the knuckle that when somebody was doing, I said, hey, hit that little, but the tattoo stayed in,
And it's funny because I heard Hip's voice in my head, because I'll ask him, like, man, how you do that? And he's like, dude, I fucking sank it.
Fingers hurt.
And it's funny that, collectors might not realize this, but what Hip was just saying, like when somebody comes to me, even though I've been tattooing for 30 years, somebody's like name dropping, hey, I've got Bob Tyrrell and all these guys, St. Mark and stuff, I want to come to you. Even after all my experience, I'm a little nervous.
Man.
You know what I mean? And it's like, how's my work going to hold up next to these guys? You know what I mean? Like, there was a guy that was getting his entire legs covered in skulls. You can do anything. You can do any skull you want, any way you want. And I'm putting a skull next to Jeff Gokwe and, Butcher, all these people. And so you're just like, man, am I going to drop the ball on this one? You know what I mean? So,
can you put your skull right next to Bob Tyrrell's and right next to Paul Booth's skull that I have?
Exactly. No pressure.
And Charles got his hands done shortly before I tattooed him, and I know his artist. It's a well-known artist.
Well, who did your hands, Charles?
Carl Grace did my hands.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, so like here I'm putting on a piece right next to Carl Grace's, already aware of all the badasses that's touched this man's body.
And the hand tattoo is right above my Bob Terrell tattoo on my forearm.
And to boot, after I tattooed him, you know, if for our listeners and everybody, Josh, I don't know if you've creeped this page or not, but this dude's a fucking killer artist, man.
Yeah.
Like a Xerox printer when it comes to the graphite, and I had no clue.
Yeah, he's talking about you, Charles.
Really? Oh, okay.
Dude.
So you could have gone into tattooing.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a point where I actually have a couple of tattoos on myself that I did on myself, and I just had to make a decision. It was later on. I was trying to think, what am I going to do after I leave work?
Right.
And I just had to make a decision where I was moving to and what kind of business I was going to have. And I really didn't want an underground or above garage business here, because there's just never would be a shop where I live here. And there is the town not 20 minutes from me where there are 4 shops already. So it was a conscious decision to say it's not going to work out, and I don't want to be just a guy tattooing people in living rooms. So, but as an artist, as someone who could, but I'll tell you, picking up a machine, I was very humbled. I mean, because thank you. Yeah, I was blessed with a talent to be able to draw like a photograph, and I can do anything with pencils and make it look realistic. But when I first put a tattoo machine in, because I did a skull, I remember, on my thigh, and I started, and I had sat with artist, a friend who was a close friend of mine who had tattooed me, and I didn't really apprentice, but I would go and watch him from everything from set up to clean up, and he let me sit in as long as the customers were cool about it. So I learned a lot before I actually took a machine myself, and I was really humbled doing that, because it was not easy to do, and it was frustrating.
Tattooing is fucking hard. It just is,
And then because people knew Charles, Mr. Venancio, then all of a sudden I did set up a little studio in my one home, and I was doing some tattooing, mostly like my son asked me to tattoo him on Father's Day, and I put a tattoo that I regret to this day on him. and then I tattooed my brother-in-law, who he lost his wife, and he asked me to put his wife's name as a memorial on. And it was those moments. And then a good friend of mine's daughter was getting her first tattoo, and he goes, if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be Mr. And I'm like, I'm not the guy that should be doing this. But I did it, and it was nerve-wracking. Because it wasn't a pencil drawing that I could maybe erase,
Right.
It's a mark that is there. And everybody on my journey to potentially do tattooing, and I took all the skin. I took all the courses, even though I wasn't working that everything an artist is supposed to, because in Massachusetts it's very regulated. You need to be licensed and everything here. So I was taking everything that an apprentice would do in order to make sure I'm doing things the right way, even though it wasn't technically legal in this state. And then like I said, I just made the decision at that point that it wasn't something I was doing. And actually, I just gave it wasn't long ago, I gave all the machine, because I had nice stuff because I could afford it. I gave my chair to an artist, my chair to an artist that I had purchased,
Nice.
who needed another chair. So I'd keep my ears open. I gave some machines to some people that I had, because I knew I wasn't going to use them. I kept a few just as sort of like little things I hang around here, and I have a machine here that when people come up to here and I go, oh, you've never held a tattoo machine or felt what a coil machine used to sound like, and I take the power thing out and I hook it up over here, and the average person, no needle in it, but they get a kick out of holding a tattoo machine.
That's awesome.
Heavier than they look.
Especially the old original FK irons I used to start with before I got some rotaries. So
Nice.
But I never was I think too, because sometimes art can be like, my drawing can be very it's not always an easy release for me. It can be very stressful, because the style of hyper realistic drawing I do, every mark I do, which is similar to tattooing, is, to me, it's got to be perfect, and it's got to so what I'm doing now with painting, I'm starting to do oil painting, and I'm saying to myself, I'm not going to paint the way I draw. So when I've started painting now, and it's a little more expressive and a little looser, I'm having a lot of fun. you know.
Right. That's awesome.
But tattooing was very nerve-wracking to me, and I think it too was a point in my life where I didn't really want to put in the effort to I knew if I tattooed, I was going to have to be like you guys and like be somebody who could do tattoo like I draw, and
Right.
I figure if I'm not going to be able to do it that way and put in the time and the effort to learn the craft the right way and maybe an apprenticeship, I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't going to do a bad job of it, and I wasn't going to do that on somebody, even if it was a friend who I was tattooing for free.
I appreciate the shit out of that.
Fuck yeah.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, I would
If
respect
there
that.
were more people that could have that outlook, you know.
I always tell, hey, you know that stupid phrase you get when you pay for it? Tattooing is one of those things, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of tattoo artists out there who probably, don't have a name, and they're doing what they can, and they're highly talented, and they'll tattoo you for very little money. But I always tell people, really, this is forever. Pay a good artist good money to do a tattoo, and you won't regret it, and you'll have a great experience, so.
One of our favorite quotes is, "I never overpaid for the best."
There you go.
Yeah, man. So
So other than your head, Charles, are you pretty much done?
Yeah, I might have a couple tiny little spots, and I'm talking about, it's funny, after I did my butt, I never realized, but I do have like now from where my thigh tattoos kind of like underneath the butt cheek, like maybe
Right.
a little
strip.
odd shaped, 4 or 5 inch square or something there, which wouldn't look like a spot that you'd get a tattoo until everything
Right.
else is tattooed, right? But I don't see myself going to a show and trying to get an artist to do a piece there. Maybe I'm wrong. I have to think about it, because I would like to fill them in. I always think about those spots that are left as a way to get connected back to people who I've met over the years, who have tattooed me, to do now a little filler piece just so we can reconnect versus
Yeah, 'cause-
giving an artist, like, if there's, if some of those artists I mentioned, if I was to get them at a show and I'd like, can you put it's not a great spot to get tattooed. They're not gonna do the best job they could do in a spot like that. So,
Sure.
I'd rather so at this point, I think from the neck down, I mean, do I have a couple of fingers left? It's really just filler stuff. But I think if I do the head, it's gonna be a major
Right.
piece, and it's going
it's
to
pretty
be
good real estate.
and and I also don't want it to be multiple I really want it to be something
whole,
beautiful, okay, that is done in the shape of my hairline, so it actually follows like a hairline shape, and so we're toying around with the idea of ravens, because they've got wings and they've got things that can flow and be a little organic and stuff, and this guy who I'm talking to is just a black and gray master in Milan, Italy, so who I became friends with. So
That's very cool. If it's so interesting to hear about your journey. If you're ever interested in a project, I think it would be neat if you filmed, say, your last spots, like your head, like let's say you got those spots on your legs filled in, but then maybe your head was the last thing, and like, a little 30-minute documentary about that journey. I think everybody would be really into that. Be a fun filmmaking project for yourself. I'd definitely watch it, right? Wouldn't you guys watch that?
Yeah,
Totally.
Yeah.
what's interesting, I wonder, he tends to be big he's doing some unbelievable, beautiful video that he's posting now too.
Oh, well,
It's
there you go.
like you guys are doing, Matt.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be something he'd be opposed to doing. And in a way, I always tell people, even though my neck's not done and I don't have anything on my face, it's almost like you've got this sundae and now you're putting the cherry on top of it,
Sure,
So,
yeah.
so when I choose somebody to do my head, the top of my head, that's not a light decision, and I want that artist to realize that as well. And I'm not trying to be like I'm the big collector from the U.S., but I want somebody passionate about it and he feels the way you guys have spoken, because he was humbled to tattoo me that time 3 or 4 years ago in Venice, Italy, and when I reached out to him recently about it, he was just blown away, and
Nice.
it was so funny because I asked him to do, I said, I'm thinking about a phoenix because of my life, and it's coming from the back and it's coming on, and he's like, no, Phoenix no good. And I'm like, why isn't a Phoenix good? He goes, how about he goes, it's not real. He goes, and there's no reference, because he specializes in
Right,
hyper.
right.
I said, well, he goes, how about a crow? And I'm like, a crow? What's cool about a crow?
Right.
So I start doing some research, and I realize a crow and a raven are very right. So
Yeah, right.
and I kind of have a Viking thing going on, and I love the whole Viking thing. So I'm like, I said to him, I said, crow's not, he's Italian. So I go, crows aren't cool. Can we call it a raven? And then he goes, yes, raven, with a smiley face, So
Nice.
it's a raven project. It's not a crow, So,
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you film it, definitely let us know. I'd love to see that. I think it could be a nice little mini documentary. Be very cool. Yeah.
And you've got me thinking now, Josh, because I was a creative director my whole life in marketing and advertising. So I get the idea you're going for now.
Yeah. So I'm fascinated here listening to your stories. I could do this all day. And so, you've got a great voice for it. So you telling your journey, right? And then as you're talking and maybe you're interviewing some artists that have worked on you in the past, including Matt and Hip. And then it kind of cuts to you getting these small gaps filled. You're aware that it might not be the best tattoo you've ever gotten, but you're getting closure, right?
Yeah.
And then the full closure, the top, the cherry on the sundae, boom, you get your head tattooed. It's fucking beautiful. Fade to black.
Wow.
Fuck yeah.
That is an awesome idea. And I'd love to.
Fuck, I'll film it.
Yeah.
I'd come out there, and because Matt's got a couple of pieces on me. I mean,
Yeah. We need to do a follow-up session anyways, huh?
We just don't have enough
I wasn't
stuff
going to bring
like
that up.
That's okay. Yeah, I mean,
We just don't have enough.
Hey, stuff happens. I mean, and in all fairness, when I've got an artist who does a tattoo on me, and for whatever reason stuff falls out, and I actually feel bad. It's like I'm not angry at the artist who something caused it to happen, and but I do like to get it fixed by the artist, because people look at my tattoos, and since that is a representative of piece of artwork from that artist, if something happened to it in the healing process, I don't want to show it to people, and it's not because I'm embarrassed by it, because I don't want them to think, oh well, who did that, So I would like to get that if there's ever a way, done. So I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Nice,
he's talking about.
nice.
I did a Clint Eastwood on him that you feel needs some more. Needs a follow up.
Yeah, it's just some of the midtone. It was just the way it healed. Some of the midtones, the highlights stayed and the dark stayed, and some of the midtones came out. And it's a big piece, And
Sometimes it's so nice to just have that opportunity for that second coat anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
it was odd. I think it was just one of those. I don't know. It might have had something to do with the numbing products we were using at the time, right, Matt, or something like that. Maybe, I don't remember.
Brother, who knows? It could have been my ass too,
Hey, you got the other one right next to it, and it never needed any touch up. So it's like, if I remember that day, we used some numbing stuff, and then we ended up eating and taking a break, and which we don't use,
shit got weird.
Somewhere along the line, somebody told me, well, you shouldn't leave those on too long or something like that. I don't know, but who knows? It is what it is. And we haven't been able to, that is a problem when you're a collector and you meet somebody somewhere. And especially if that is a concern that a collector has. So you travel somewhere, or you meet an artist at a show and you get something done. And if it's not finished, or there's a follow-up, and now you've got a piece, and 4 years later, you haven't been able to connect with the artist because, your paths haven't crossed, or the artist is busy. And it's so hard for me, again, despite having to want things touched up, or if an artist is coming into my town and he's got the opportunity to bless 3 new people who haven't been tattooed at all, it's like, you're gonna touch up my tattoo, even though I feel like I should get it touched up. I feel bad depriving somebody of a day's work to touch up a tattoo.
What a fucking sweetheart.
I would rather hop on a plane and go to that artist's studio, and have them take care of the tattoo, and not take up a day at a show where they're going to lose money or something like that.
Sure. That's nice of you.
Yeah, and again, I can vouch for it, because I did return to the Massachusetts Tattoo Convention, and Charles did want to follow up, but the exact thing happened, and he was like, man, he wanted other people to get tattooed, wanted me to know that I was going to try and take some more hardware, and so he came and was a brother and fucking supported,
And I didn't even want people. I didn't even want to show it to you with people around you, because I know it's not.
Well,
it's not
it ain't that bad, guys.
I've seen it.
No. But you have such a high level of work that you do, and no, believe me, it's better than most people's tattoos. I don't mean it that way, but to me, I know you look at it and see things that could be fixed on it, and I do, and I know what they are too, being a creative person and someone's tattooed. So if I'm near your booth, because I've seen that with people where somebody's at somebody's booth and they're complaining about something, and now there's other people, they're like just getting the hell out of there. You know what I mean? So that tattoo, the way it healed, is certainly not indicative of a Matt Clemmer tattoo. I mean, your tattoos healed beautifully. So whatever happened that day, who knows?
Yeah, until we can
drinks the night before.
That's right, dude. Until you got my permission, when you're showing it off, until I can do that follow up, you can just tell everyone Joshua Carlton did that one.
That's funny. Well, I kind of retired from, I don't show tattoos anymore. I just kind of retired from that. I stopped doing the individuals, like I said, to let other people and other artists get hardware. And there were a lot of people that I competed against when I was winning the overalls. And I just said, you know what? I'm done. I'm done doing it. Maybe one year I'll come out of retirement when I'm like 70 or 60 and see if I still can win something, but I'm done now. I wish I could be a spectator. And it's been very humble too to me when I was winning awards for people going to shows. There were a lot of show guys who had said, hey, we need a judge, why don't you go? And I said, no, I got to show this tattoo. And they were like, come on, you got enough tattoos, you got enough trophies. And it wasn't for me. Like, I didn't want to disappoint, but I would love to sit on it. That would sort of be, at this point, then another thing for me. I'd love to sit next to some great artists like you guys and be, on a judging panel for a particular show or something.
A lot of the times as an owner of a convention, I think collectors like you, especially very seasoned ones, is a great choice for a judge, because you obviously know what you're looking for. You know what I'm saying? Yep. You're obviously very picky, and you know what you're looking for, and then being an artist yourself, so that makes you pretty prime for something like that. So that makes sense.
And there are some people are getting it, and like I said, because I've been obviously traveling and going to shows. I mean, I've seen some people that just I look at myself and I'm covered right from the net, and I'm like, oh my God, this person blows me away with the beautiful work, and people are like, they look, I guess I just see what is capable out there by artists, and there are some people that they may not have as many tattoos, but there's some beautiful people. So there are people that get it as collectors, and they're collecting some beautiful work by people, and there are so many artists cranking out good work these days. So we just didn't have access to that, and it wasn't that the artists weren't capable of it. I don't think it takes some pioneers, like you guys, who are going to push the envelope in terms of what you can do on skin, right?
Absolutely,
it's just amazing what people are doing. Like, some of the tattoo that a woman from Germany did on me, it was one of those first times she did. It was a combination of realism with some graphic shapes and all. Like, people weren't doing that in America. There was this German influence with these. It was sort of like realism and graphic design combined. Nice. Yeah. And I love the piece as a graphic designer myself. And it just, at the time I was getting that tattoo, I wasn't exposed to that style. So when, again, I said to her, I'd like you do what you want to do in a way. And she showed me this combination of, images composed and I wouldn't say Photoshop, because it was more just graphic design related. I was blown away. I was almost in tears when I saw the design she showed me. And Joshua, you used a lot of Photoshop, right? And stuff like that, right?
Yeah. I started out as a photographer, actually.
Yeah. You know what's so funny that I have? Because when I moved here and I was building a studio for myself up here, I came across a file. I think I purchased from you one of your digital files with all references of skulls and flowers and stuff like that. When I was thinking of, just to show even though you've never tattooed me, I really, I learned a lot about you through Matt and the way Matt talked about you. And then I followed you on social media. So I have a lot of respect. So I'm very honored to actually be talking with you right now. Yeah, but I did buy, I think I have a little skull painting that you did, a small, tiny black and gray skull painting. And I did purchase your reference when I was thinking about okay, this is the kind of stuff I'm going to do.
Sure,
I like
sure.
Bob Terrell, I like Carl Grace, and I like Joshua Carlton, and that's the style I wanted to emulate. I
Sure.
was smart enough to bail out and not do it.
Well, I definitely appreciate the support. That's awesome.
Yeah, good shit, man. Yeah, and Charles, you and I both were there at Sturbridge when we witnessed Joshua Carlton win Tattoo Artist of the Year by the Tattoo Society magazine.
I remember that. It was
You
awesome.
remember that? Yeah, dude. And it's funny to sit here and think about Josh has been tattooing around 30 years, and you began your journey of a collector around 30 years. And it's
Hell
just
yeah.
funny to think about how close in time you both
Right.
entered the tattoo journey.
Yeah, so I definitely know what he means by people hadn't raised the bar just yet. So, what we still had our minds blown by a realistic skull. You know what I mean? But that skull that I saw that made me feel that magic 30 years ago today would just be average in a regular tattoo shop. Hips and Matt are both doing stuff way beyond that. But that tattoo still means something to your journey, to your story, and I do love that you're hanging on to some of those. I really like that. I appreciate it.
And artists today are, I mean, you guys are so smart. I'm not trying to pump him up, but I know Bob Terrell, right? When I first met Bob Terrell and I was trying to tattoo, it's like, man, he'd say to me, I don't use lines. He goes, there's no lines in realism. I can't even pull a line, right? What's in Bob's style right now? Black line work, and because he's realized over time to heal, those lines are going to soften, they're going to hold some edges. So he, not only did he never use a rotary machine, right now he's now he's putting some heavy lines in his work because he knows he's through years of tattooing what that tattoo is going to look like. So many of these people, and I'm not going to mention names because I've been to shows, I've seen beautiful, beautiful, killer color tattoos, right? When you see them posted on Instagram and all the freaking whites there and the stuff is transparent and beautiful. And I say to myself, I want to see that tattoo in 2 years. And
Absolutely.
I've been to some major shows where I've seen some of those major pieces. And again, not going to mention anybody. And it doesn't look like that anymore.
Right. That's why I preach using so much solid black and contrast. You've got to have that foundation. And that's from my own experience from doing tattoos that didn't have it, and that's the joy of 30 years of tattooing. It's like, oh, can't tattoo like that. That doesn't work.
Yeah, and I think that's you nailed it. That's what I was trying to say to even Bob, teaching an old dog new tricks, right? Doing that and adding that to some of his work. Not a lot, but doing that.
Yeah,
and
just enough.
He's also a big believer in not overusing white. White's used that something needs to be shiny, right? Because and no one heals better than I do, okay? And I take care of my tattoos. I moisturize them. I don't go in the sun. I live in a beach community. I hate the sun. But white doesn't stay. It doesn't. It just and when it does, it stays yellow. So don't get fooled by these overuse of white in tattoos.
Absolutely.
It's important for a highlight. That's one thing, and I'm not saying don't use white, but you can't have a tattoo depend on white. That's for sure. I don't know how many girls or women that want those white tattoos on. I'm like, don't waste your time. You're gonna get a tattoo. It's gonna be the disappearing tattoo that you have. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So,
white should be saved. Highlights are a perfect example because honestly, leaving negative space is just as powerful, if not more powerful, than white, and it doesn't turn yellow. So if you save whites, I even later in my career learned, like white for wet spots, lips, eyes. You know what I mean? But
metal, maybe shiny.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But negative space will give you even more power, and it'll stay that way. So, yep.
I mean, everybody heals different, but I can tell you experience.
Yeah, it's going to heal underneath your skin though, so you're never going to be able to have what you see on Instagram with polarized filters. It's not really going to look like that. You're kind of fooling your clients. So, for sure.
Guys, I just thought of a fun idea, and ultimately this would be up to all of us, but especially Josh. But what if, especially since Milan's closed down right now, you get a hold of your artist from Milan, see if we can swindle a special invite to the Evergreen Tattoo Invitational. Your artist comes from Milan, meets us all at the Evergreen, and Josh, and then we can film the filler pieces. You get your dome done, you get your little filler pieces by your artist from Milan. He comes to Oregon, we're all there. Boom, the vision's happening in one weekend.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that could happen.
And maybe you might get lucky enough to even join the panel of judges. Who knows? Josh does, though.
That might be like one of the greatest weekends of my life. I'm still gonna have to take my wife to Italy at that time because it's our anniversary, and I promise that. Yeah. But there is a little bit of fear of traveling to Europe. And the other funny thing is, like, I've got my passport and I look totally different when I'm coming home.
Right.
Right.
That's interesting, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Right.
That's
it's
great.
like. And we're just getting our new passports now, so it's so funny that I'm gonna have to redo it if I go ahead and do that potentially. But anyway, that'd be amazing. When is Evergreen going to happen this year?
So we've got it scheduled for October. I think it's like mid-October. I feel pretty confident that by then we should be able to do that. My wife and I both been vaccinated. It seems like the vaccines are coming in pretty quick now. So
see, this is interesting. Now I'm trying to find out why I always miss. Because I am going probably to Italy, if all goes well, the end of September into early October. So I will be back mid-October, but we're hoping to go, if they're open, we're hoping to go like the last 2 weeks of September or into the first week of October.
We'll stay in touch for sure, and
it's not booked, so I would change that around if there was an opportunity to go to Evergreen. So.
I feel like when we come back, it should be the biggest. Evergreen's always been something I put a year's time every year into it, but I think people are going to just be so hungry to be at this show again. I'm hoping it's just a huge celebration of tattooing.
It's happening everywhere, and I know collectors are certainly dying for it. And I know
absolutely,
fortunately, artists are still able to, shops are open; they're able to make their income.
Thank God for that.
Do you? I just wonder how it's going to affect. Let me ask you guys a question. I know this is about collectors, but I know in a lot of businesses, especially in corporate American things, I think people are going to re-look at business models, right? COVID has shown that you don't need a footprint. You don't need to have offices necessarily. People are learning to work from home.
Absolutely.
Do you think this year and a half or 2 years, even 2 years, because I know of one show they just canceled the second year of it, you think people are going to be less apt to travel when they realize that they don't need to travel?
I don't know. For tattooing, I think they'll do what they've got to do. You know what I mean? Because, they might have somebody a couple of hours away that can do it pretty good, but the person they're looking at, it's always worth, as it's always worth traveling to.
That, and out of all industries, that yes, so many companies don't realize they don't need their office space. Everyone's on Zoom like we are right now, handled it. We are still one of the few industries where our product and service cannot be delivered to you digitally. You still got to come and get it in person.
That is true. That is true. It's funny you mentioned, so the artist I'm talking to in Milan, he actually has come to America. I know it's a big treat for him because a lot of European artists just don't, unless they're famous. A lot of them don't travel to America because they stay in Europe. They do European shows. But I know he's gone to the big tattoo, the New York Tattoo Expo or something like that. I think there's one in New York City. There is one, right?
Oh yeah,
Empire State.
Yeah.
So I've seen him post photos of being at Times Square and things like that. It's a big deal for him to travel to that. So. But
that's
awesome.
You know what? Now, what I may do now, as my wife and I get closer to booking that trip, as long as Italy's going to be open, I may now make sure it's pushed a little further up because we've been a little flexible on the time to make sure I am back for Evergreen.
Nice. Brother. Yeah, and check to see if your dudes would be willing to travel.
That's a discussion you guys need to have on your end before I would go something like that. Okay. If you guys were serious about that, and that's a, you said that, but there's some planning and some thoughts if it's something you'd really truly want to do. If it doesn't happen, I get it, but either way, I think your idea, Joshua, is a really fabulous one. And I think, I've seen the video that you guys are doing at Aisle 9, and I'm sure, Joshua, you're doing similar stuff. I would love to be part of that, even if the final tattoo can't be done there. You know what I'm saying? If it didn't work out that way. But
yeah, I think you'd really be down the road. I think it'd behoove you to film some of this stuff. You know what I mean? You've got, you're a modern day art collector. You know what I mean? It's like, it's different from the galleries. It's on your body. You know what I mean? So I think documenting that artistically, shot very professionally and everything, it could really be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Matt knows I was just part of, I mean, people can't see this in a podcast, but there was this book that came out. It was a book about Ray Bradbury, who wrote The Illustrated Man.
Yeah.
And there's just thousands of tattoos in here. And I'm honored to be on 3 pages in here. And, and all the artists who have tattooed me are like Matt's mentioned in this book, because you can see my right leg completely, because I'm not wearing any clothes at all in the photos. Strategically covering parts. It didn't take a lot to cover, but I mean,
And a side note, since in Charles, we do have viewers. People are watching this on YouTube, so they can see you. And we just see Charles from basically the chest up, but. You know, he is a man that has always taken good care of his body, so he's got a really nice physique too, which doesn't hurt, you know, for real. So when this man takes his clothes off to show his bodysuit, his body actually looks good, which helps us all out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You want to know, that is where tattooing, as I got older, and like, it's funny, being, like I said, in May, I'll be 59, which is, having the tattoos and the artwork on my body, and when I used to go to shows, it was in a way a reason to stay in shape, because I wanted my body and my tattoos to look good. And so, if I knew there was a show in Boston or somewhere and I was going to be, taking my shirt off, I didn't want all that excess, I actually, got in shape for shows, just watched what I was eating. So, yeah, I mean, having your skin look the way my skin does, it really goes into me taking better care of myself and staying out of the sun and trying to stay fit, so that my tattoo, it's funny that I don't mean to, I hope I don't offend anybody with this, but like, how there's always a different tattoo. There was the tramp stamp way back when, right? Well, now, what is it with this underboob tattoo right now? I mean, I hope believe me, I hope women's breasts stay up perky and big and stay up for the rest of their life. But there's a lot of tattoos we're not going to see later in life on some people when gravity starts taking. I would lower those a little bit, those tattoos.
Plan ahead.
The booby chandeliers.
Right.
I mean, and it's not, women age beautifully, and it's just something you've got to think about. I thought about that when I was doing my stomach argument. What am I going to put on my stomach so that if I do get out of shape, I just say to hell with this? I don't want a face that's going to look all bloated now.
The waterfall.
Yeah.
6-pack abs,
Right.
Yeah.
Nice.
I will say though, because I think tattoos, if someone's fully covered, and I hope I don't offend anybody, but if we take 2 people that are very obese, right, and 2 dudes that are overweight and stand them next to each other, the only difference, one dude has no tattoos, the other dude full body suit. The dude with the full body suit, even if he is 500 pounds, looks cooler than the dude that doesn't.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've seen huge people at shows, and I'm like, man, you just walk around with your shirt off, and you're clearly out of shape, but it doesn't matter because his tattoo, he looks badass.
That's right. That's right.
Totally seen that. Yeah.
Another thing people have said to me, like, what are you going to look like when you're 80 years old? I go, I'm going to look like a really cool 80-year-old dude.
Right.
Because I agree with you, and I've seen beautiful shots of, I think it was to answer that very question, it was women and men who were, in their 80s, 70s, and who were, thin, but like, skin just aged and drooping and all.
Yeah.
And it just showed that you can be beautiful no matter how old you are and what kind of shape you're in, and the work is still beautiful, I had a buddy, I was sorry, I felt sorry for him. He's older than I am. He's 66 or 67 right now. But I guess, I don't know. He wanted to get his hands done, and he can't get an artist that wants to do them because they say his skin is too old, and they keep telling him it's what you want is not something that they want to do. He wanted some realistic, like, lion or something. They don't want to do it on him. So you have to think about that too, as you go, where you're putting it, the placement of it, what it is, what it's going to look like. Because too many people are, like I said, they're looking at Instagram, they're seeing the immediate gratification of what a tattoo looks like, but the true mark of a tattoo and a good artist is what it's going to look like, 5-6 years down the road. So
yeah, for sure.
I don't know. Like Hip and I always say, can't see it from my house. I'm just kidding. Just
But I love like one of the things that this artist in Milan is doing. A lot of artists are doing it, and that's one of the reasons. Because if I was going to get tattooed and fly, I want to make sure there's some degree of success that it's going to. I mean, if you think it's hard to follow up with Matt Clemmer, what is it going to be like to follow up with an artist in Europe, right? So,
Right.
my thing is, it's like I love when the artist is showing the fresh and the healed tattoos, you know, because if they're being honest and they're showing like, look, I know how to put ink in, and this is how it's going to look, you know, 2 years from now, because that's very important. I don't think young collectors realize the importance of that.
Sure.
I really don't. So
Yeah,
I see a lot of tattoos, and being a seasoned collector, I'm like, wow, that's freaking amazing. Show it to me in another year, though, you know.
Right.
You know.
Absolutely.
wow. That's awesome. Josh, Hip, do you guys know many collectors like Charles here?
It's got to be.
I'm lucky. I get to tattoo quite a few collectors. Charles seems to have done it a lot longer than some of the ones that I've been working on recently. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But real similar stories. You know what I mean? Similar paths for sure. It's
awesome.
Always very, very interested to talk to them, like kind of the why behind the whole thing. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what I find interesting too with artists is almost every tattoo. A lot of artists that have tattooed me, they always said, "Man, I wish I had tattoos like you, because you guys are too busy tattooing everybody. You don't even have time to get tattooed yourselves and all."
Yeah.
And there's the occasional, you know, thing you see where, you know, some great artist tattoos another great artist, and that's just a great thing to see, you know. But it just doesn't happen a lot, and. One thing we were talking before, what inspired me, and that I think is going on also in your community, that's why tattooing is the way it is today. You know, like guys like, and Joshua, I know you're an artist yourself and all, and obviously when you tattoo the way you guys do, you are true artists before you're tattoo artists. So what people don't realize, like, it's like Bob Tyrrell, you know, he put graphite and pencil to paper before he became a tattoo artist, and he tattooed later on.
Kind of did it a little later in life.
And that's sort of what I attempted. And to be honest, one of the nicest people. I mean, you guys are true gentlemen, and there are so many in this industry. I had the pleasure of meeting Sean Barber many years ago, and Sean was a guy that I looked up to as a painter, right? As an artist. I didn't know long before he tattooed, and I would see him painting at shows if he traveled to the East Coast, and we'd have conversations, and he was always pleasant and engaged me just like you did, Matt. And then one day there was that Paradise Tattoo gathering out here in Massachusetts, and I'm flipping through all the artists like I'm doing, and it says Sean Barber. I'm like, wait a minute, Sean Barber is not a tattoo artist. What do you mean? And I'm looking, and he had a few and I reach out to him immediately. I send him an email, and my God, here was a guy who was an accomplished artist, could paint circles around people, and he reached out to me like he was a beginner, and he was so humbled, and he attacked it. He did a tattoo on me it's actually on my real father. He did it on the back of and it was one of the first times I had a realistic tattoo, a portrait done, and this guy showed up with everything done and prepared. It wasn't winged last minute, because this was a new journey from being a fine artist to a tattoo artist. And there I was lying there, and Mike DeVries and Nico Hurtado are leaning over and saying, what if you darken that? It was such an unbelievable experience as a collector.
That's awesome.
To have these people, and to this day, Sean and I are friends, and if I run into him in Vegas at a show or something, he always stops to say hi to me and talk with me and take a look at the tattoo to see how it's healed and all. But it's just that's why I say tattooing, that it's a community of artists first and foremost.
And dude, my booth was directly across from Sean, and that's another day where you and I talked. You were on deck while he was setting up, and you were there with your backpack talking to me on deck about to get it. That was, again, those early days of me getting to know you, not knowing that you were someday gonna ask me to tattoo you as well. I remember that day.
That's awesome.
It's so funny because now it's coming back to me. I didn't even Yes, I remember that now, but it's some of these shows just start to, meld and become one, So but those were great times. They didn't have that show many more years after that. I think they had it a couple of years after, but it ended up being just an artist gathering and not a tattoo. Because it used to be tattoo and art gathering or something like that. But I think that might have been the last year that they ever did, or one of the last years that they actually had tattooing at it. Because I think they used to do it once on the East Coast and then maybe somewhere out west, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember. I don't know. Paradise Tattoo Gathering, it was called. I remember that. Yeah. I don't know how long you guys go. I've got nothing to do, but if you guys have any questions for me, I'm here as long as you want me here. I've got, so it's up to you guys.
Awesome.
Which we usually try and go just about an hour and a half. We've already gone past that, which is awesome. But Hip or Josh, do you guys have any more questions for him?
Man, really the three that I wrote down like had gotten answered in this whole thing, and it's just been like fun watching this whole journey. And like I feel like anytime I hear you guys, you old school dudes, talk about stuff, I almost feel like I've grown up with you, like you're all my fathers, and like we've just been kicking it. And almost like it implants a reminiscent memory in my mind to where like I was there and I can see it. Because you talk about Charles's backpack, I see him, he's always carrying it, slapping hands with everybody, everybody's praising him, to like I can picture Nico and DeVries leaning over telling Sean, darken this, darken that, and I wasn't even there, and it's just, it feels good.
Yeah, Hip, I think you're very lucky, actually. I don't mean to talk down you like that. I think back in the day, there was no connection between the person getting tattooed, right? I'm not going to call him a collector, and the artist. It was like you walked in, it was very intimidating. The guy did a tattoo that you chose there. There was no, I want this one, put it over here, bum, bum, right? I think today, you can't have the collector without the tattoo artist, and the tattoo artist is not who they are without the collector. I think there is a connection, there's an emotional and besides a physical connection between that really truly makes this a special community. This is no longer walking into Home Depot and buying a faucet, which is what tattooing used to. And I'm not knocking the old days of tattooing. It's just that and so you grew up in this industry as a time when you get to see people like Joshua and Matt and learn that and build connections with the people you're tattooing. Why shouldn't there be? It's like you're putting a permanent mark. This person is your business card. They're right. They're out there with your work on them for the rest of their life. And it should feel more special, that engagement. How many artists you see in booths, they've got their headphones on, they're just tattooing somebody and there's no, and not that you should be a chatty Cathy and Patty or whatever you're talking, but it's like there's a real emotional connection when I get tattooed by somebody, whether it's somebody doing a major piece or whether you're tattooing a small part on my finger. To me it's the same thing.
Love that.
I'm blessed.
Love that, man.
Yeah, you can tell I love this industry, and I think if I could start over, one of the things I would do is I would be on your side. I'd be a tattoo artist, because there's so much I love about it. I just wish I knew back then that there was a way to take my creative skill and then learn to use this device to, like I said, I could never just make the connection. It was just, and I didn't have the energy to try to do it and do it the right way.
Well, and like attracts like. So because of your heart and your passion, your standpoint on it, I feel like you said, it does take us both, and like attracts like. And I feel like you've been blessed with so many relationships and great artists because of the internal intent and demand that you have for the experience, which went out and created it for all of us.
Well said. I mean, the artists who have tattooed me and some of those, some of those are the best relationships I have in my life. And I used to see them once or twice a year. Yeah. I mean, how do you explain that? There's just something physical there that transcends just, a couple I go out to dinner with every week. You know what I mean? So, I mean, how do you, it's just, the relationship that we have, that I have with other tattoo artists, and I haven't even seen your face besides Instagram and talked to you in probably a year and a half, 2 years. I mean, it's like we just stopped talking yesterday.
That's right. Beautiful.
So this is more than just pictures on the scan.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Good shit, man.
This was awesome.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, man, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely, man.
Charles, we honor you, love and respect you, brother. Thanks for showing up today and serving us all from your table. It's been a great time.
Anytime. I feel the same way about you guys, and even though we haven't, like I said a little while ago, I haven't had a chance to interact. Think about, anytime I see your work, I think about you, and when I look at my own self, I think about you. So, and that's the other thing. I'll take that with me to the grave, So.
Yeah. Powerful.
All right, guys. I hope.
Come out to Evergreen, and we can actually talk in person.
Definitely, I'd love to do that. And Joshua, you keep doing what you're doing and still stay healthy, man. And on your journey, and you look awesome and you sound awesome, and I hope you feel as well as you look. So
I do.
All right.
Happy day.
I probably don't know how to shut this off anymore. I'll have to get my wife. But stop video. I see a little icon down there. So
also for our viewers, do you mind giving out your Instagram page so they can take a look at your drawings?
Thank you, Josh. Yes.
It's let me see if I can. I probably can't hold it up for people to see, right? But it's my name. It's actually Charles Charles Venancio Venancio artist. Charles Venancio artist. I believe there's a little Charles _Venancio _artist there. So, and that's because I do have another Instagram page, which is just Charles Venancio, and that is more of my, daily stuff and my tattoos and stuff like that. But I decided just actually during lockdown to launch another page with just my drawings and my artwork on it. So it's not rich in content, but I just started it. So,
perfect.
But anyway,
so good. Man, Charles, thank you not only for today, but just who you are in the industry, and just everything that you represent, and still being a teacher to others, especially the newer generation that are smart enough to come and ask you something about something. So then thanks for pouring into them too.
Definitely. We got to keep this going.
That's right. Happy day.
Very nice to talk with you guys. Joshua, an honor to talk with you as well. Take care, guys.
Thank you so much.
Love you, brother. See you, man.
See you, brothers.